God, my granddad. Inspirational for me. He was a hard worker, lived his life really for others, died at the age of 98, but yeah, definitely a peer in my life. So he was born the day World War I broke out. Throughout my whole life, I just looked up to him. He was, like I said, a hard-working family man that didn't really do much for his own enjoyment. It was all about the enjoyment of the family. And I guess I sponged off of that, and I really looked up to him for that. First job I ever had was working in a restaurant in Bridgewater. Kitchen assistant, or pot wash, I guess you could have called it back then. Tough, grueling job, taught me a lot about hard work straight away. Working was always a big part of my life, even in the early days. Tried a number of different trades, got into civil engineering, which commonly known as groundworking. Working on the roads, hard work, hard graft. First week on the tools in groundworking, I managed to drive over the site laser in the dumper truck, fill up the whacker with diesel instead of petrol, and come back with multiple things, come back with BT cord instead of string line, and just a whole raft of things, because I had no construction experience, or nobody in our family that had worked in the construction industry prior to that. My ganger at the end of the week sat me down and he said, "Listen, son, you are not going to make it in the construction industry. Go and find yourself an office job." And I guess you could have looked at that at the time really as throwing red rag to a bull, because that inspired me to then want to prove him wrong, and obviously stuck at construction, but various different construction industries over the years. But I guess energy was what I evolved into. So did a plumbing and heating apprenticeship. Literally the day after I qualified, I then set up my own first business. It was sole trading, so it wasn't like a limited company. Got myself a van, got myself the tools I needed, and went out on my own for the first time. When GB NRG first started, we were looking at much smaller systems that the industry was. So the first system we ever installed was a residential system. That was 2010. We were developing and building further residential projects, and then we started entering into the commercial side. But even a commercial project back then, you were typically talking between 10 and 50 kilowatts. There weren't many projects that were going above 50 kilowatts. And then 2011, we started to creep up a little bit in size. Some of them got to 100. I think we might have built a 250. But typically, they were still smaller projects. Prior to 2010, it would have taken you about 25 years to make your money back from a PV system. So nobody was having PV installed. It was a labour scheme. Initially, the Clean Energy Cashback Scheme, commonly known as the feed-in tariff, was what just exploded the solar PV industry. The payback went from about 25 years to about 6-7 years. So complete game changer, and that was why the industry exploded. And another slash of the tariff, you'd come back down again. And did teach me a hell of a lot though, diversification. And by that I mean, because we started off with residential, we moved into commercial, and then we moved into ground mount, because we just wanted to spread risk as much as possible. The first solar farm we ever built was a megawatt project, which seemed like a colossal project at the time, but now that's known as like a tiddler. That was a 1 megawatt project down in Devon. Took 2 months to build, which again was pretty good going. Guys were incredible, so the conditions, it was just, again, it was sod's law. The subsidy was always structured. So the annual subsidy cut was March 31st every year. So we were building, or building at peak, always, no matter how much planning you tried to do, or how much planning you tried to push on everybody. As soon as summer came, once you've done all your snagging in April and May, summer was always typically a quiet period, which is like the best weather. And the worst weather imaginable, and especially that year because it snowed that year, was when we were busiest. So it was tough. It was tough. The guys were great. I think I mentioned if they didn't have each other, then they would have never got through it. That's what they all said. Good lad, good bunch of guys. projects got bigger and bigger, basically, and they have done over the years. The progression of the business was steady, but then that first ground mount project was multiples of the largest system we'd ever installed, and within weeks the company that we'd signed with could see that, you know, we were a company that they wanted to work with, so they got us to sign 4 more before that project had even been completed a month later. Don't get me wrong, they probably needed us to, you know, somebody to get them all finished by the end of March 2013. But for me, you know, I'd put on a suit for the first time. You know, prior to that, you know, we were dealing with farmers or homeowners, and my approach was never a suit approach. It was a casual approach. But when we finally managed to get a foot in the door with, you know, a big investor investing multiples of millions of pounds into these projects, you know, the meetings were in London, and I had to put on a suit for that. And to come away with 5 multi-million-pound contracts was a big, you know, achievement for us. That we'd gone from that company into a company that was delivering multiple megawatt projects. It was a fantastic achievement. We've always got on very well with other ethically minded businesses. So that's by far our best success rate, is working with other businesses that care about what they're doing. For me anyway, you know, it's not just about fitting systems, it's about fitting systems with other businesses that think along the same wavelength as you. Everything about him, you have to bear in mind, he was a man that, you know, was consistently a role model in that way. It didn't matter where you went, you know, if you went to a restaurant or if, you know, you walked past somebody cleaning a room, he always was incredibly polite with all walks of life and invested time into, you know, just his time into, you know, hopefully making somebody's day a bit better, really. Yeah. And I guess same way of thinking for when you're in business. I'm the same outside of work as I am in work. I enjoy people's company, and I like to think that I'm, you know, not nice to people and make people's days better. It's the same in work. We pride ourselves on making that process as seamless and as positive as possible for the customer. And I just want to say thank you to all those businesses that felt they could trust us with the responsibility for installing their systems for them.